I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm going to lead, and Kim and Carla will push you guys where you need to be if you kind of get lost. So ask Carla Kincaid Yoshikawa or Kim Starr for any help that you might need.
One thing researchers have found is that the most densely painted areas of ancient caves, like this chamber, often correspond to locations with strong resonances and echoes. Many scholars believe this indicates early humans chose these locations with resonant and echoing sounds for rituals that involved the visual meanings they created with their graphic arts, as well as chanting, music, and possibly dance. It's now believed that many items found among ceremonial artifacts, and originally believed to be for practical purposes, were actually used for music. For example, rocks thought to have been used for grinding grain, but oddly found among ceremonial items, are now believed to have been a kind of early xylophone and are classified as lithophones. Groups of stones, like the ones you see here, of different sizes, shapes, and mineral compositions, create a range of different sounds or notes when they're struck or rubbed. And some stones have been intentionally shaped, using stone flaking techniques in ways that altered their sounds. So now let's listen to a set of shaped stones to hear what kinds of music they could have created using these lithophones. Techniques to produce more varied sounds. Sounds. Let's take a minute to watch and listen to our own musical group, the Cavemen, as they perform for us. Enjoyed this musical interlude. That's all we have time to cover now, but please come back anytime to listen to and learn about all the instruments here. Now, please follow me to the next exhibit.
Hello, people. Welcome to the Upper Paleolithic runway, where stone meets style and survival meets sophistication. I'm Tim Gunn, and I'll be your fashion guide as we step into the fabulous fur-draped world of 17,000 years ago. Let's begin with the basics. Animal hides. Functional? Yes. But boring? Not on this runway. Our early designers used sinew stitching, decorative fringe, and even shell and bone accessories to add flair. Honestly, I'm gagged by the innovation. This isn't just fashion, it's prehistoric couture. Scientists now know, after finding needle-like tools, that fashion was happening in prehistoric times. You can touch this 3D model of the found needles and see the real photo. In the early days of modern archaeology, scholars often underestimated the cognitive and technological capabilities of Paleolithic and pre-Paleolithic humans. It was widely assumed that these early peoples lacked the sophistication to weave textiles, sew garments, or construct baskets. As a result, some early archaeologists reportedly discarded small fragments of fabric and fiber artifacts during excavations, deeming them unimportant. Contemporary researchers now acknowledge that these assumptions significantly hindered the study of prehistoric textile production, and some experts argue that the field remains nearly 100 years behind in its understanding of these ancient technologies. It's tragic, really. If I can have your attention over here. This is a 3D representation of a grave that was discovered containing the remains of an Upper Paleolithic man, though the leather garments he was buried in have long since decayed. Time could not erase everything. Left behind were delicate shell and bone beads, still resting precisely where they had once been sewn into the leather. Like ancient breadcrumbs of style, they told a silent story. Using this evidence, scientists were able to reconstruct the garments, embellishing them just as they had been worn some 17,000 years ago. These early humans didn't just dress for warmth, they dressed with flair, they decorated their clothes, and that, people, is fashion. Now feast your eyes on this exceptional example of Upper Paleolithic male fashion. Now this is what I call Ice Age elegance. First, let's talk textiles, or rather the brilliant use of natural materials. We're seeing rich, earthy leathers, likely reindeer or mammoth, tailored with remarkable precision. Note the fit, not baggy, not tight. It's practical and flattering. That's a hard line to walk when your sewing kit is literally a bone and a dream. Now draw your attention to the fur trim. It's opulent, it's dramatic. It says, yes, I hunt, but I also have taste. And that shoulder-draped pelt? That's not just warmth, darling. It's a power cape. And the beading. Oh my. Look at the decorative bands of shell and ivory strategically placed across the arms, chest, and legs. That's not just embellishment. That's status signaling. He didn't just survive winter. He conquered it. A wonderful representation of when science meets fashion. Now this is a look that says, I just foraged a full basket of roots and still have time to snatch your Ice Age man. Stunning. I just have one thing to say to this Upper Paleolithic gal. She made it work. I have to say, looking at these magnificent garments, the hand-twisted skirts, the fur collars, the meticulous beading made from shells and teeth, I'm genuinely moved. These weren't just clothes. They were protection. They were art. It's a shame we no longer see this kind of fashion on the streets today. I mean, when's the last time you saw someone strut into Whole Foods wearing braided flax cords and a bear fur shrug? It's tragic, really, but you know how it goes in fashion. 1 minute you're in, and the next minute, you're out. Thank you, people. Now off you go to learn about Upper Paleolithic art.
Hi there, friends. I'm so glad you could join me today. We're standing here in a reproduction of the Lascaux Caves in France, home to some of the most beautiful and oldest works of art from prehistory. It is often referred to as the Sistine Chapel of prehistory. Now, isn't that something? Now, people back then didn't have a fancy art supply store down the road. No titanium white or phthalo blue, but they made do. Oh yes, they sure did. Follow me up here. They used what nature gave them. Ground up red ochre, charcoal from their fires, yellow iron oxide all mixed up with a little water, maybe some animal fat or spit if things got real creative. And just like that, you've got paint for brushes, no store-bought bristles here. They used twigs, feathers, bits of fur, even their fingers. Some of these paintings were sprayed through hollow bones like an airbrush. It's amazing what you can do with a little imagination and a mammoth bone. Now here's something that really tickles my curiosity. Some of the minerals used in the Lascaux Caves weren't even from around here. That's right. They came from miles and miles away. That tells us something kind of wonderful. There might have been trade going on, that people were moving, sharing, and bartering. Art, connecting people, even back then. Follow me down here. Let's see what this big fellow is up to. Maybe a happy little tree lives here. He's not that happy. So the next time you pick up a paintbrush, just remember, you're part of a very, very old tradition. Now, isn't that something, everyone? Please come over here to Exhibit 9. Thank you, friends, for letting me share a little bit about the joy of painting in prehistory. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right, folks, follow me. All right, folks, now here's where things get wild. We wanted to show you a more realistic representation of many of the caves in Lascaux. They were smaller and went deep into the ground. Imagine it. Upper Paleolithic artists, tens of thousands of years ago, crawling deep into these pitch-black caves. No daylight. They weren't painting out in the open. They wanted these walls way back here for the magic, for the mystery, maybe even for the acoustics. But here's the kicker. To see what they were doing, they had to bring fire. You burn a fire in a cave with barely any airflow, and what do you get? Carbon monoxide. Oxygen starts dipping, the air gets thick, and suddenly
and a bird on a stick. It's the only human figure in the cave. This powerful image may tell a mythic or shamanic story, possibly a vision or spiritual journey. Because of its remote location and unusual imagery, some believe that
As our journey through the past is soon coming to an end, we hope you leave with a deeper understanding of our ancestors. Now, if you would please follow me. We now know early humans were so much more than we once imagined. They had families, they loved and they lost, they fought, they hunted, not for sport, but to nourish their young. They understood the dangers of inbreeding and developed ways to prevent it. They were musicians, artists, storytellers. They expressed themselves through fashion they crafted with their own hands. They survived, and because they did, we are here. Today, compelling evidence and years of meticulous research reveal that early humans had a profound and enduring connection with the natural world. Rather than being governed by formal laws, these ancient societies lived by deep-rooted beliefs, beliefs closely tied to nature, to the seasons, to the animals they hunted, and the spirits they imagined. Through their art and symbols, they left us glimpses of a rich inner life. We now believe their intelligence and cognitive abilities stretch far deeper into the past than we ever dared to think. What was once viewed as a bleak era of Ice Age survival is now emerging as a time of intellectual awakening, a chapter when the first seeds of human civilization were sown. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the journey, and let this be a reminder. Brilliant, soulful humans walked this earth tens of thousands of years ago. They laughed, they struggled, they dreamed, and in the grand span of time, all of us are but a blip on the timeline of humanity. Stay humble, my friends, and be well.
hello, hello, hello.
I hear you.
Okay, well, I think that everybody else got lost on that last bit of the tour, so we have to fix that. Good.
Everybody just wanted to stay for the ceremony. I'll stay here. So for those of you who are sitting down, as you can see behind me, there is a free Animesh gifts, which are Animesh characters. And then inside the box are some things that we made through Meshi to create part of the stuff at the cave. So please take whatever you'd like.
Well, you guys were our first tourers, so our first tourists. So we know where we have to fix a couple of things, but thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. And then tomorrow you can come back on your own, and you'll be able to click the rock instructions.
Thank you very much. Bruce can't hear me, so
Yeah, well, you guys were our first guinea pigs.
So thank you, Ellie. Thank you for saving the day by screen sharing for us. We got the audio, and thank Bruce for me because he can't hear me. He can't hear us in Zoom.